remember it so clearly. The smell of roasted coffee beans mixed with the faint, sweet scent of cinnamon rolls. It was a Saturday afternoon, one of those rare, perfect days in October where the air is crisp and the sun feels like a warm blanket. Mark had called me that morning, his voice a little strained, and said his old college friend, David, had a last-minute emergency. He needed help moving an antique mahogany cabinet from his grandmother's house to his new apartment across town. It was a whole-day affair, he said, and he'd probably be home late. My first thought was disappointment. We had planned to spend the day antiquing, but Mark was a good friend, and David lived far away. So I told him I understood, and went to our favorite cafe to get some writing done. I was hunched over my laptop, nursing my second cup of Earl Grey, when a jingle on the cafe's large flat-screen TV caught my attention. It was the local news, and they were running a feel-good segment on a viral video that was trending online. I wasn't really paying attention until the reporter's voiceover became more excited. "A proposal for the ages!" she gushed. "Happening right here in the heart of the city's botanical gardens. Our cameras were there to catch the incredibly sweet moment, and we thought we'd share it with you all." The screen cut to a shaky, cell phone-captured video. A young couple dressed in sweaters and jeans stood under a gazebo covered in fall leaves. He was on one knee holding a ring box. It was a charming scene, and I found myself smiling as the woman's hands flew to her mouth in surprise. Then, the camera angle shifted slightly, and my smile vanished. In the background, on a winding brick pathway, a man was laughing, his arms slung around a woman's shoulders. The man's face was turned toward the camera just enough for me to recognize him. It was Mark. He wasn't in a moving truck or struggling with a cabinet. He was a spectator, enjoying a beautiful day out in the park. His plaid shirt was the same one he had been wearing that morning when he left the house. The woman was unfamiliar to me. She was petite, with fiery red hair, and a joyful laugh that seemed to light up her entire face. She was not a stranger, though, the way she leaned into him, the easy intimacy of their body language. It wasn't a casual friendship. It was a couple's laugh, a shared secret. A cold, sharp clarity pierced through the initial shock. It wasn't disbelief. It was a sudden, absolute certainty. The scene on the TV screen wasn't a glitch in the matrix or a strange coincidence. It was a confirmation of a truth I had been subconsciously avoiding for months. Little things like his late nights, at the office, or the way his phone was always face down on the table. The friend he was helping. It all clicked into place, with the precision of a master lock being picked. My heart didn't race. It just felt heavy and still, as if suspended in amber. I remember watching for a few more seconds, my eyes fixed on the man who claimed to love me, who was now a background player in a stranger's romantic story. The happy couple on screen was I, a cruel counterpoint to the unraveling of my own relationship. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my now cold tea. The ceramic mug felt solid and grounding in my hands. The woman on screen was saying yes to her proposal, and in the background, Mark was saying yes to something else entirely. My first impulse, the one born of pure emotion, was to call him, to scream, to confront him right there in the cafe, surrounded by strangers who would witness my breakdown. But I didn't. That would have been messy. It would have given him a chance to lie, to deflect, to manipulate. It would have made me the hysterical girlfriend, and him, the victim of a misunderstanding. I wouldn't give him that. He didn't deserve a reaction. He deserved a consequence. I closed my laptop, neatly tucking the charging cord into its sleeve. I paid for my tea, left a generous tip for the kind barista, and walked out of the cafe, a plan already beginning to form in my mind. The world outside was bright and loud, but my focus had narrowed. The anger was gone, replaced by a cool, strategic resolve. I wouldn't play his game. I was going to change the rules. And the first rule was, he had no idea what was coming. I was the one with the advantage now, armed with a secret he didn't even know I possessed. The hunt had begun, and he was my unsuspecting prey. Returning home that afternoon, the house felt different. The air, which had always felt like a warm, shared exhale, now felt thin and cold. Mark was already there, smelling faintly of old sweat and something I couldn't place. He was sprawled on the couch watching a basketball game, his feet propped up on the coffee table, the picture of a man who had just finished a grueling day of labor. "Hey, babe," he said, not looking away from the TV. "Tired?" "A little," I replied, my voice a practiced neutral. "Moving David's cabinet was that hard, huh?" He grunted in confirmation. "Dude, that thing was a monster. You wouldn't believe how much that mahogany weighed. It took all day." He launched into a detailed, and I now knew, entirely fabricated story about the ordeal. The tight stairwells, the near misses with the doorframe, the pizza they ordered on the floor of David's new, empty apartment. Each word was a tiny, jagged stone he was placing in front of me, a new layer to the lie. And I listened to every single one, nodding along, my mind an organized filing cabinet, sorting and cross-referencing his narrative with the truth I now knew. The calmness wasn't a mask. It was a strategic withdrawal. I was a general, observing the enemy's movements, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. My investigation began that evening, under the guise of an ordinary life. My first target was his phone. I knew the passcode was his birthday. Not his actual birthday, but the date of his parents' anniversary. He was sentimental about it, so it was a safe bet. I had to wait. Later that night, as he slept soundly, his phone charging on the nightstand, I slipped out of bed. The moon cast a pale light through the blinds, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. My hands were steady, my breath shallow. I unlocked the phone. The first thing I did wasn't to check texts or calls. I went straight to the cloud photo albums. I knew he had a habit of automatically syncing his photos. I wasn't looking for incriminating selfies. I was looking for the metadata. I scrolled through the photos from the last 2 weeks. A quiet and methodical search. I found nothing from the botanical gardens on his phone, which meant he must have deleted it. But I did find a series of pictures from a local brewery on a Tuesday night he had claimed to be working late. The photos showed him laughing with a small group of friends, and in the corner of one, partially obscured, was a woman with fiery red hair. The second piece of the puzzle came the next day. I noticed his running app was open on the iPad he used. For work. He was a dedicated runner, and the app logged his routes, mileage, and pace. He had told me he ran a 10-mile loop around the office park on his lunch breaks. I scrolled back through the log for the past few weeks. On 3 separate occasions, his running route was not in the vicinity of his office. The GPS map showed a clear loop, a path I recognized. The perimeter of a large park I knew was just a few blocks from a downtown residential building. And on the day he was helping a friend move, the app showed a route, but it was just a few hundred yards of scattered, slow movement, consistent with a leisurely walk, not a strenuous move. I took screenshots of the maps and the timestamps, meticulously labeling them in a secure folder on my laptop. My third method was a bit more old school. I needed to know more about the woman from the photos and the video. I had a clear enough image of her face from the photo I found on the iPad. I used my laptop to pull up the original viral video of the proposal, which had garnered millions of views. I took a high-resolution screenshot of the background, isolating Mark and the woman. Then, I did a reverse image search on a specialized search engine. The results led me to an article on a local events blog that had a gallery of pictures from the romantic surprise proposal. The article had a photo of the woman and Mark in the background, but this one was clearer. The caption read, "Local artist Anya Petrova and her friend Mark enjoying the botanical gardens." Anya Petrova. The name was the final key. I did a quick social media search. Her profile was public. She was an artist who worked with clay and had a small studio downtown. Her bio mentioned she loved adventures and spontaneity. I scrolled through her photos, feeling a cold dread settle in my stomach. There, among her artwork and landscapes, were several photos of her with Mark. Not romantic shots, not yet, but photos of them hiking, at art galleries, at a pottery class. He had told me he was attending with a co-worker. I found one specific photo, posted just 3 days ago, of 2 mugs on a table. Her caption read, "Finished the mugs Mark and I made last month." I recognized the distinct blue and white marbled pattern on one of them. It was the same pattern as a mug he had brought home recently, claiming it was a gift from a colleague. The most damning evidence, however, came from the most mundane of places. His bank statement. I had access to our joint account for household expenses, but he had a separate card for personal use. I knew the login password because I had helped him set it up years ago. I found a string of charges that confirmed everything. 2 tickets to an exhibit at an art gallery, on a day he was at a conference. Dinner for 2 at a trendy new restaurant on a night he was working late. And then, the final piece, a purchase from a jewelry store 2 days before the viral proposal. It was a necklace, not an engagement ring, but the price was high enough to be significant. The receipt was for a gift. The date matched the day he told me he was running errands. I had my proof now. It wasn't just a hunch or a coincidence. It was a meticulously crafted dossier of lies, complete with timestamps, photos, and financial records. I had done it all without him ever suspecting. The calmness had not broken. It had solidified. My investigation had been quiet, precise, and utterly successful. The only thing left to do was to decide how and when to use this information. I closed the folder on my laptop, the screen reflecting my own eyes, cold and determined. The time for gathering evidence was over. Now the time for the reckoning was at hand. The venue was perfect. The annual gala for Mark's company. A black tie, a fair attended by everyone who mattered in his professional life. His boss, his colleagues, even the CEO. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and ambition. Mark was in his element, a practiced charm on his face as he introduced me to various people, his hand resting proprietarily on the small of my back. He seemed oblivious to the quiet simmering storm inside me. He was celebrating a promotion and was due to give a speech after the dinner. I had been planning this for 2 weeks, meticulously, every single detail. I had secured a copy of the night's agenda, studied the placement of the projectors and screens, and rehearsed my delivery. I wasn't here to ruin his night. I was here to redefine my future. Dinner passed in a haze of polite conversation and forced smiles. I ate little, my mind focused on the appliances of the room. The 2 large projector screens on either side of the stage were the keys to my plan. Mark was scheduled to speak at 9 p.m. At 8:55 p.m., I excused myself to the restroom, my heart a steady, slow drum against my ribs. I had a small, inconspicuous thumb drive in my clutch. Inside, it held a carefully curated 10-minute video I had created. It was a silent, powerful compilation of the evidence I had collected, set to a minimalist piano score I had found online. The video wasn't angry or accusatory. It was a factual presentation, a series of images and data points. I made my way to the back of the room, near the technical booth. I had done my reconnaissance and knew the tech assistant was in the green room grabbing a coffee before the speeches began. This was my window. I approached the laptop, the screen displaying a standby image of the company logo. My hands, which should have been trembling, were perfectly still. With the confidence of someone who belonged there, I quickly plugged in the thumb drive and, with a few clicks, queued up my video file. I set it to play on a slight delay, just long enough for me to get back to our table. As I took my seat, the lights dimmed, and the CEO took to the stage to introduce Mark. "Our rising star," he boomed. "A man of integrity, dedication, and loyalty." The words hung in the air, a cruel, ironic echo. Mark walked to the podium, a smug, satisfied smile on his face. He began his speech, talking about hard work and the importance of trust. He was in the middle of a sentence about the people who support us behind the scenes, when the music swelled. A simple, melancholic melody. The company logo on the two screens was abruptly replaced. The first image was a screenshot from the viral news clip, a perfectly captured freeze frame of Mark and the red-haired woman, Anya, laughing in the background of the proposal. The date was clearly visible. October 12th, the same day he was supposedly helping a friend move. The crowd murmured, a ripple of confusion spreading through the room. The next slide appeared, a split screen. On one side, a screenshot of his running, app's GPS map showing his route around the downtown park. On the other, the corresponding text message he had sent me that day. "Just got back from my 10-mile run by the office. Brutal one today." The murmurs grew louder. Then came a montage of images, each one a sharp, undeniable truth. The blurry photo of him and Anya at the brewery, a screenshot of his credit card statement showing a charge for 2 dinners at a restaurant he had claimed to be too busy to go to with me, a receipt from the downtown jewelry store with the date and time, printed clearly. Finally, a selfie of Mark and Anya, smiling brightly, standing right in front of the Botanical Gardens gazebo on that same fateful October afternoon. They were happy, beautiful, and in love. A collective gasp went through the room. Mark's face, which had gone from confusion to a pale, horrified white, was now contorted in a mask of impotent rage. He stammered, grabbing the microphone, but his words were unintelligible. The CEO was staring, his mouth a perfect O. Anya, who was sitting at a different table, had her hands clamped over her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. The video ended with a final, elegant black slide. On it, in stark white text, were the words, "Truth is a public matter." I had no further evidence to present, no more words to say. My case was airtight. The video had presented the facts, and the facts were damning. I took a slow sip of my champagne, my gaze never leaving Mark. The smug confidence that had been his defining feature had completely evaporated. He was just a man, exposed and small. I stood up, pushing my chair back with a deliberate lack of haste. The room was silent now, all eyes on me. I didn't need to scream or cry. I simply placed my empty glass on the table and, with a final, unreadable glance at Mark, I turned and walked toward the exit. The sound of my heels on the marble floor was the only thing I could hear, a rhythmic, resolute sound. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had planted the seed of truth, and its consequences would now grow and bloom on their own. Walking out of that ballroom and into the cool night air, I felt a lightness I hadn't realized I had lost. The weight of his lies, the facade of our life, the burden of my secret investigation. It was all gone. I wasn't just leaving a gala. I was walking out of a prison. I hailed a cab, and as the city lights blurred outside the window, I felt a powerful, undeniable sense of empowerment. I wasn't the cheated-on girlfriend anymore. I was a strategist, a detective, and now, a free woman. The ending was not a sad one. It was a new beginning, a blank page waiting for a story of my own creation.